Next up, we have a software developer with 20 years of Python experience. Matt Hamilton is the Director of Developer Relations at Ripple. With past experience at IBM and Hewlett-Packard, Matt has led global distribution teams of mobile developers building native iOS and Android apps for health, nutrition, and fitness tracking. A keen technologist and interested in the nuts and bolts of technology, as well as the wider picture, Matt is at his happiest when he is working as the glue between management and the board and the technical teams. Joining us today from Bristol, UK, with a session on the Developer Handbook, How to Build on the Blockchain, please welcome Matt Hamilton.
Hello. Right. Hopefully that's me live here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I probably should have updated Trevor. I've actually moved from Bristol to Barbados in the time between accepting this talk and doing this talk. So hence why the background is probably a little more sunny than it is in Bristol. But anyway, thanks everyone. And let me just see here. I should be able to just share my slides. I'm not sure they're showing just yet. 1 second here. Let me just share that. Good. Hopefully that is good. Hopefully you can see my slides there. So what are we going to talk about today? The Developer Handbook and how to build on the blockchain. So as I said, my name is Matt Hamilton, and I'm with Ripple, specifically RippleX. And just a little bit about Ripple. So Ripple is a fintech company. We have about 500 employees across 9 global offices, and we're working on building what is known as the Internet of Value. And so this is the idea of being able to move money around as easily as we can move information, right? At the moment, I can stream down, literally I can get live streaming video from the International Space Station, right? Or even, one of Elon Musk's ships on its way to the International Space Station. But if I was to try and send a payment from here in Barbados over to somebody in Romania, for example, at Pennsylvania, that would probably still take the best part of a week, right, to make that payment. I know here that when I pay my rent, it goes here from Barbados. My landlord actually lives in Chile, and it takes about 3 or 4 days for that payment to go through, which is crazy. Like I said, we can stream information, yet we can't stream payments around the place. And that's what Ripple are looking to solve, what we call the Internet of Value. So just a bit about Ripple and just trying to understand Ripple and how all of these pieces fit together. So Ripple is the company, and Ripple has several kind of divisions. We've got RippleNet, which is the payments network, and RippleNet connects up a whole load of banks and financial institutions. I can't remember how many at the moment, 300 plus banks and financial institutions that use RippleNet. It's kind of similar to, you might have heard of Swift, which is an interbank messaging network. And so RippleNet is kind of similar to that, but a lot more modern, a lot faster, bidirectional messaging, all that kind of stuff. And then there's RippleX, which is a division that focuses on what's called the XRP Ledger. The XRP Ledger is mainly what I'm talking about today, which is the blockchain, right? So the XRP Ledger is a decentralized, permissionless blockchain that anybody can transact on, and they can use that for making payments peer-to-peer without any kind of central authority at all. So the big question about blockchains is, what is it you're trying to solve? Blockchains can be used for a whole load of different things. Just some examples here, from storing things like medical data, tracking music royalties, personal identity, supply chain, so tracking goods around the place, gaming, so storing in-game items or whatever. What I'm going to be talking about specifically in this instance is looking at peer-to-peer payments, so things like cross-border payments in this case, which is really the sweet spot for the XRP Ledger. People have used the XRP Ledger for a lot of other things, and there's companies like Forte that are using it for gaming and storing in-game currencies, plus you can do things like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and store them on the blockchain and trade them. And There's companies that are tying things like personal identity, tying things like accreditations, so exam results, right? You do a accreditation, and when you get issued a certificate, then that can get stored on the XRP Ledger and validated. Anybody can verify that, yes, indeed, you were given that accreditation. So kind of looking here, I'm going to look at 4 key trends here and in finance. And so the first of which is the tokenization of everything. So according to the World Economic Forum, about 10% of global GDP is going to be tokenized. They project it's going to be tokenized by 2027. There's many new forms of value to be tokenized beyond just fiat currency. So beyond US dollars, euros, yen, etc. Gold, stocks, for example, are going to be tokenized. And actually what's interesting is the XRP Ledger allows you to tokenize any sort of asset, and I'll cover that in a bit, but there have been people issuing gold on the XRP Ledger for a while. But there's going to be an explosion in use cases. There's a lot more that we haven't thought of yet. If you rewind and think about the early days of the internet and think about what things people will be using the internet for, then, you know, would you have thought that they're going to be using it today to remotely monitor their cat at home, for example? That's not a use case that probably would have come up had you looked at things, you know, back in the mid 90s. So there's an opportunity for efficient token liquidity and settlement on the XRP Ledger. So this is the case of how would you actually trade these different tokens. If you want to trade something, you need somebody willing to buy it, right? So there's no point in saying, okay, I want to sell this gold for US dollars if there's nobody willing to actually pay US dollars for gold. And that's a notion of liquidity. And that's a function of the size of the network kind of as it grows and the more people that are using it. The second trend is the fragmentation of networks, right? And the different sort of specialized networks that are evolving. There's not going to be one winner takes all. So you've probably heard about lots of different cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. There's other blockchains like Binance Smart Chain. There's currencies like Litecoin, Doge, etc., Solana. So there's a lot of different blockchains emerging, and they're going to have different capabilities. And it's not going to be one that satisfies everything. Just in the same way that we don't have one currency for everywhere, we don't have one language for everywhere. There's some that are going to become dominant, but they're each going to have specialized requirements because they can't solve every single requirement that people have, right? So interoperability between tokens, interoperability between networks is going to be one of the key things to solve. You've probably heard of DeFi, decentralized finance, and this is kind of the beginning of things. So from the embers of the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was born, then came XRP, then came Ethereum, and there's been a lot of blockchains and cryptocurrencies that have evolved since. But there's been a kind of a distrust of traditional financial institutions. You're seeing the rise of these kind of mobile first banks or challenger banks that are taking over from the traditional banking institutions that people use. People are no longer saving in the same way. They're perhaps investing that money in, their stocks and shares are more easily accessible now through tokenized stock offerings, cryptocurrencies, etc. And consumers are getting tired of poor financial services experience. They're getting tired of having to wait 3 days to move payment. They're getting tired of having to go into a branch physically to do some of these things. So, the rise of decentralized finance and the idea that finance can be peer-to-peer is taking off. But on top of that, whilst peer-to-peer is great, people are still going to want some kind of user-friendly interface on top. So I don't think that traditional institutions are going to disappear, but they might start to become shop fronts to some of these decentralized systems. And that will give people the ability to either interact with them directly or to go via a third party, depending upon what they would prefer. And within DeFi, there's this push towards decentralized exchanges. So there's really two different types of exchange. There's the centralized exchanges, exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken, Poloniex that you might have used in cryptocurrencies, and things like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, et cetera, London Stock Exchange. So those are exchanges that are centrally run by a single point. And whilst they can offer a very good user interface and nice fast operation and things like that, they can also go down under heavy load. They're also, you're trusting your custody of your assets to a third party. And if suddenly they decide that for whatever reason, regulatory reasons or whatever, they will no longer return your funds to you, then potentially you have a problem there. Whereas with decentralized exchanges like those built into like the one built into the XRP Ledger, you are in custody of your funds yourself, right? You're not relying on a third party to custody the funds during the trading, which makes that, more secure in that term. And, following on from this, the rise of decentralized exchanges. I mentioned about resilience. They don't go down under heavy load because there's no central point. There's, they're much broader, better security and access. Although, you have to look at this field. There's a lot of like upcoming blockchains. You may have heard, was it last week before, one of the blockchains, Solana, stopped operating and had to be shut down by its creators. Now, a lot of people would say, if it's decentralized, how could it even be shut down? So there's a lot of sort of new and upcoming blockchains that are working towards decentralization, but are maybe not quite there yet. One of the advantages, for example, of the XRP Ledger is it's been running for nearly a decade now, and has very much proven itself, in real world situations, under heavy load, under constant attack. It's proven itself to be resilient and secure. And centralized exchanges will not be able to scale to deal with the kind of the long tail of tokens. So you have some very popular tokens, and if you look on the centralized exchanges, especially the cryptocurrency exchanges, you'll find, your Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, that sort of thing, and a lot of the well-known ones. But if I, as a developer, create my own token for a project, then that's not going to be listed on the likes of Coinbase until such a point where it gets big enough, and I probably have to pay the exchange a listing fee, not insubstantial listing fee, to get listed. Whereas on decentralized exchanges, there's no gatekeeper there. So a decentralized exchange can serve this kind of long tail of tokens, which makes it ideal for things like non-fungible tokens, NFTs. If I want to tokenize something that I want to sell, be that a piece of art, a car, a house, whatever it might be, if I want to tokenize that and sell that, there's only one of them. So I'm certainly not going to pay a listing fee on the likes of Coinbase or Kraken to list that one token. They're not going to be interested in listing it in that sense. So decentralized exchanges work much better for this kind of long tail of tokens now. So I've mentioned XRP. XRP is the native currency of the XRP Ledger. And so looking at how Ripple are kind of sort of solving this Internet of Value, we kind of need to look at XRP. So XRP is designed to be moved very efficiently. So you might be aware of, like I said, other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum that take a lot longer to transact. So a transaction in Bitcoin takes about an hour to be fully settled. Ethereum can be about sort of 10, 15 minutes. And the costs of those transactions can be, $5, can be $50. I've seen people on Ethereum trying to withdraw or make trades on Ethereum, and they want to make a $150 trade, and they're being quoted a $100 fee, which just makes those things unworkable. So the XRP Ledger is set to be much more efficient with that, and so it's very cheap. The cost of a transaction is less than a penny, 3-second settlement time. So if you make a transaction, then the transaction is final within 3 seconds. It's what's called deterministic finality rather than probabilistic. With Bitcoin, there's a block every 10 minutes, but you want to wait a certain number of blocks. Usually it's about 6 blocks, people quote, in which they wait to ensure that that transaction is not going to be overwritten by another transaction from a longer chain. The XRP Ledger works differently. it doesn't use proof of work. It uses a deterministic settlement algorithm called the XRP Ledger Consensus Protocol, which allows transactions to be settled in 3 seconds. And because there's no proof of work mining, you don't have the huge energy resources used by proof of work chains like Bitcoin. So it's much more environmentally friendly, and it can be much cheaper to transact on it. And like I said, it's very liquid. XRP is on 125 plus exchanges. It's traded against a whole load of over 200 pairs of currencies. So, you will find quotes for XRP Euro, XRP US dollars, Chinese yuan, whatever, and a lot of other crypto, against cryptocurrencies as well. So XRP Bitcoin, for example. So the XRP ledger is the ideal ledger for decentralizing finance. Like I said, it's the OG DEX. It was the first blockchain to feature a decentralized exchange. It's been in continuous operation since 2012. So, the best part of a decade it's been operating, and it's performant. So like I said, 3 seconds for a transaction. So if you make a transaction, then it comes through very quickly. You're not paying a huge fee on it, which means you can make much smaller transactions. It's economical to make a $5 payment on the XRP ledger. It's not economical to make a $5 payment on Ethereum or Bitcoin. So, this changes the business models that can be used here. Now, a couple of the kind of built-in features of the XRP ledger I'll just highlight from a developer point of view. So you have the notion of issued assets. They're sometimes internally called IOUs within the XRP ledger. Now, these are tokens, this tokenization of real-world assets, or assets that are not actually physically on the XRP ledger. So this is tokenized Bitcoin, tokenized Ethereum, and like I said, things like gold, US dollars, etc. You can issue those as assets on the XRP ledger, and anybody can issue them, right? So on Ethereum, you need to create a smart contract. You use a smart contract and create what's called something like an ERC20 token to issue use a smart contract to represent the tokenization of assets. The XRP ledger has that functionality built into the ledger itself, so you don't even need a smart contract to do that. It's native functionality. With a few lines of code, you can issue your own assets there, and it tracks the credit and the balance limits of each of these assets on there, right? And it has, to go with that as well, a built-in decentralized exchange. And this is a limit order book exchange. So this is similar to what you might be used to seeing on the likes of Coinbase, Poloniex, Kraken, etc., in which you have a number of asks and a number of bids where people are saying, I will buy this asset for this amount, or I'll sell this asset for this amount. And you can actually place your order, and you place the price at which you're willing to buy and sell it. So it's not like, say, on Ethereum, which has automatic market makers, and you have to sort of stake in a kind of liquidity pool. With the XRP ledger, it's actually a full-blown proper exchange that you can actually submit orders to the exchange. And it can do cross-asset payments. What's really fun with this is that I can make a payment and say, okay, I want to make a payment to this destination, and I want to pay them 100 euros, but I would like to finance that payment in US dollars. And what will happen is the XRP ledger will look at the decentralized exchange and convert that payment on the fly in a single transaction. So within that 3 seconds, when I make that payment, it will look at the decentralized exchange and find an offer to sell those US dollars for euros to then deliver to the end. Now, again, what's really great is it has a function called pathfinding and a function, the synthetic order book function. That means, as well as looking for orders from, say, US dollars to euros, it will also look at US dollars to XRP and XRP to euros. So it'll actually take several order books and combine them to create effectively a synthetic order book and use that in order to make the payment. And that's still a single atomic transaction and a single fee, low fee that you're paying for that. And this pathfinding can go across multiple assets. So, you can have a situation where I want to buy shoes and I want to pay with bananas, right? And it might say, okay, well, we can trade the bananas for strawberries. We can change the strawberries for coffee. We can exchange the coffee for US dollars and US dollars for shoes, right? totally made up example, but that kind of shows the power that can happen with this pathfinding. That it will look on the network and find all the different ways in which you can pay, and so you can choose the cheapest way to make that payment. So, building on the XRP Ledger, you can drive, better financial inclusion here, because you can the high fees in cross-border payments disadvantage those that can afford it the least, right? So if you're looking to send $20 home, you're working abroad, you're looking to send $20 home, if you have to pay $5 to make that transaction, then that's a quarter of that payment that you are losing out on. And Ripple are looking to reduce that for cross-border payments. The XRP Ledger can reduce that if you're wanting to build directly on that as well. So the idea being to make payments much easier. So rather than having to batch payments up, you can make them on demand, right? Rather than waiting until the end of the month and sending that $20, if you are paid daily, then you could make a payment daily, for example. So there we go. That's what I wanted to talk about. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask now. Now, I can't see here the chat on here, I'm afraid. I've lost the chat window here.
I can see it.
Trevor? Okay, great. Yeah, if you want to ask
questions. Yeah, if any of you guys want to write any questions. So I have a question just from the last part. So is kind of, when you're talking about reducing the cost of monetary exchanges between countries, and because they are pretty predatory, are you suggesting that Ripple would be like the means for that as a replacement for something like Western Union?
Right. So there's sort of two different elements to this. So
okay.
Ripple themselves do not replace Western Union. Ripple supply the technology that a company like Western Union would use. And MoneyGram, for example, you may have heard a while back that MoneyGram were using Ripple for the transactions here. So you can use. So Ripple will provide the technology to allow financial institutions to use things like the XRP Ledger, mainly because they don't want to directly, connect with it in the same way that a bank would use a, technology company rather, to interface with, any other system, right? But they can do it directly. The XRP Ledger is open. They can do it directly. You could go and build something that would rival Western Union on the XRP Ledger today. And because it's this open playing field, that's going to hopefully bring down the cost of these remittances, because these remittance companies no longer kind of have a stranglehold on those payments. But also as well, it actually makes it cheaper for those remittance companies. So if I'm trying to make a payment here from Barbados to Chile, that is not a very common route for payments. So the banks involved, there's unlikely to be. So what happens at the moment, you have what's called Nostro and Vostro accounts. So what happens is the bank in Barbados will have an account with a bank in Chile and will hold some local currency there on their behalf. And so when I make the payment, a message is basically sent to the bank in Chile and says, take the money from our account with your bank and give it to the destination account with your bank. Now, that involves these bilateral agreements between the banks. Now, it's unlikely that, like I said, the bank in Barbados is going to have a relationship with the bank in Chile, because it's just not that common a route. Between New York and London, definitely. Singapore, Tokyo, definitely. But probably not Barbados and Chile. So what will happen is they will use what's called a correspondent bank. So the bank in Barbados will have a relationship with the bank in New York. A bank in New York will have a relationship with a bank in Mexico. A bank in Mexico may have a relationship with a bank in Chile. And the payment will be made via this correspondent banking system. And each one of those intermediate banks will also add a fee on top. And that's why if you make an international payment, there's sometimes you'll see, correspondent banking fee. And your bank often may not even know what that fee is going to be. And it's only when the payment arrives at the end that you're like, well, wait a minute, that's $20 short. What happened there? And the reason will be that there's been a correspondent banking fee that's been paid on top of that. But using the XRP Ledger, they don't necessarily need to have that correspondent banking system, because what can happen is the bank in Barbados can basically sell Barbadian dollars for XRP. XRP is transmitted to Chile, and then they sell XRP for the local currency in Chile, and then deliver it that way.
And ultimately, those costs are, as you said, put on to the lowest common factor, which is the people who can least afford it.
Exactly, and that's the problem there, because a lot of these costs are fixed costs per transaction, so
Yeah.
they disproportionately affect the smaller transactions. If you're making $1 million payment, then the costs are probably not significant, whereas if you're making a $20 payment, they are. And like again with blockchains like the XRP Ledger, it opens this playing field up so that anybody can build on top of it. So you know, Ripple is one company building on top of it, but there's plenty of other companies building on top of the XRP Ledger. So for example, there's a company called Coil that is using it for web monetization and streaming payments. So when I go to a website, my browser is actually streaming per second payments to the content creator for every second I'm reading or watching the content. And that's only possible because the fees are negligible that can actually make that payment per second for each transaction.
We do have a question here. I guess it'll probably be our final question because we've got to wrap it up in a few minutes. But Jacob with a K asks, do you believe cryptocurrency volatility will eventually disappear or become more stable? And is that the main thing stopping mainstream adoption of crypto as a value exchange? He says, I'm not an expert. It's just a question I had from my point of view. Really appreciated your presentation, by the way.
Okay, well, thank you, Jacob. And it is a very valid question. People see cryptocurrency going up and down all over the place. I mean, yesterday, people may have seen, if you're following the markets, you may have seen the likes of Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, you know, losing 10% of their value in the space of, you know, an hour or whatever, right? So it is very volatile. Now, in the case of something like cross-border payments, actually, that volatility is not so important, because if you think about it, if I exchange Barbadian dollars for XRP, send the XRP to Chile, and then sell the XRP for local Chilean currency, the actual value of XRP doesn't really matter as long as it doesn't change within the 3 seconds it takes for that transaction to happen. And again, this is a benefit of XRP. Because it's only 3 seconds, you're not necessarily going to lose that value, right? Because it can't move as quick within that. The price won't move within 3 seconds as much. Whereas if you made that payment with Bitcoin, by the time it gets to the end, within an hour, it might have lost 10% of its value. Or if you make it with, you know, traditional banking system, within 3 days, the value, you know, the currency rate could have changed. And so what happens is the payment providers have to kind of build in a cushion for that volatility over the 3 days, and they charge that to you effectively, right? But over time, yes, I think the volatility will slow down as more, you know, financial trading is going on with these. You're now getting futures, so you can hedge the bet using futures products against cryptocurrencies, for example, and all of that is hopefully going to kind of smooth it out kind of over time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Matt. This is actually, I found this fascinating. We really thank you for your time and coming here to Texylvania this year. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks very much. All of my contact details are there. If you want to reach out to me, I'm at Hammertoe on Twitter, or my email address is there if you want to contact me at Ripple.
Yeah, and that was Matt Hamilton from Ripple. So thank you again, Matt.
Thanks.